I like to sing. I know I'm not very good at it. I usually sing in what I call the key of me. And during COVID, when it's just me and the chazan at the mic, I try to remember to at times take a step back so I can sing along and be perhaps less burdensome to both the chazan and to the congregation. Though I appreciate that Cantor Ezer, knowing that I like to sing, often chooses keys that he thinks I may have a better time carrying. So thanks for that, Sydney. My family, on the other hand, they can be less forgiving. Often on Shabbat afternoon, while playing board games or something like that, I'll break into a spontaneous song based on something that somebody says, and everyone at the table will be like, shh, enough already. Of course, often my song choice is something like Monster from the Muppets. Mana do 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 do. Mana do 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 do. Mana do 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 do. I can understand that at times that might be a little tiny bit annoying. But it has me wondering, especially when we come to Shirat Hayam and to Shabbat Shirah, why is it that we humans like to sing? Former Broadway performer and music teacher Frolic Taylor wrote once in the LA Times a number of years ago that people use song as a way to release emotional pain and connect with their souls. They sing, she continued, to release whatever emotion is going on in their life or to express whatever they are missing. People want to sing as naturally as they want to breathe. This is how it was for Israel when the sea split before them, said the Hasidic master Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. They wanted to increase their joy and remain delighting with their Creator, and they didn't want this song, this joy, to cease. For Levi Yitzchak, the reason we humans sing is because the joy in the heart ends after a short while. But when we put the joy we feel into words, and those words affect us in turn, the joy expands. We see this really clearly in this morning's Torah reading. What is most striking are not the miracles that are performed, the parting of the sea or the giving of manna, wondrous as they may be. What is noteworthy is how quickly the Israelites forget about them. They have barely crossed to freedom when they begin complaining about food and water and other goods, and about even being no longer surrounded by good old familiar Egypt. No wonder Midrash Shmot Rabbah challenges them. Harbe nisim hakadosh baruch hu hasa Yisrael. Have you already forgotten all the miracles which God has performed for you? Miracles seem to be an ineffective way of inspiring a consciousness of God. We marvel at them when they occur, and then quickly forget about them the moment they are finished. Tradition favors song over the description of the splitting of the sea because it is, as the commentators suggest, a lyrical outpouring of emotion on the part of the people. Though it speaks of miracles, it does so in the language of metaphor. It speaks about how the people perceive their lives and the miracles they perceive in them. Singing, writes Rabbi Jonathan Slater, is a method for connecting directly to sensation, to focus awareness on the experience of the moment. What is more, he continues, with reference to Shirat Hayam, to the Song of the Sea, the experience of singing connects us to the source of that experience, or in this case, awareness of God. Close your eyes, take a breath, and another, and think upon a moment where this has been true in your life. When was that moment? How did it feel? For me, as I mentioned earlier in the services, one of those moments was my very first week, even my very first day of rabbinical school. That time, the Ziegler School in Los Angeles was still under the auspices of JTS in New York, so it was possible to spend 2 years in LA, 1 year in Israel, and then 3 years in New York, and that's what I did. Good thing, too, because otherwise I never would have met Jody. My very first day at school, I was introduced to Debbie Friedman, Zichrona Livracha. Wednesday, as I said, was her 10th yahrzeit. We spent a week with her learning how to pray, how to connect with the source of our experience, how to connect with God through song. It was also my first introduction to the notion that mindfulness practice was also Jewish practice. That's what I said in the introduction to the prayer Eloheinu Shama that we recited at the beginning of our services. I'd like to point out that Mapik Hey, that requires that extra breath, which we davened and which we heard Cantor Ezer enunciate so beautifully. There was something special about being in Debbie's presence. For me, it was what the New York Times wrote in her obituary. She was known for her clear, strong voice and the intense spiritual conviction with which she sang and accompanied herself on the guitar. My friend Paula Spack was very close to Debbie. Paula's father, Elliot, was the longtime director of CAGE, the Center for Advancement of Jewish Education. In the 80s and the 90s, they would have thousands of Jewish educators, rabbis, cantors, and committed lay leaders attend their conferences. They would take place on university campuses throughout North America. Each year, Debbie would form a CAGE choir. Paula remembers hundreds of people who had never sung before, including some like me who have never really sung, would meet every day for an hour to perform on stage, would meet every day for an hour and then perform on stage the closing night of the conference. And Debbie had this unique ability to connect people to the liturgy through her music and her energy. As people raised their voices, they also lifted their neshamot, their souls. Debbie and the choir would inevitably get everyone in attendance, thousands of people from all around the world singing together. When asked how she would accomplish that, Debbie would respond, "What I do is respond to the text." A rabbi friend of mine calls my music musical midrash. Debbie was immersed in Jewish learning. They are, she said, they are essential to my grasping of what these prayers are about. In the text I'm working on at the moment, one particular phrase may repeat and go over and over again in my mind, in my head, and I write about what comes to my mind in relationship to the words, lyrically and musically. One of Debbie's most impactful songs is Miriam's song. It comes from this morning's Parsha. Lauren just read it a few moments ago. The Song of the Sea is well known. We rise for it. It's recited as part of our morning prayers. Pages of commentary exist on its meaning, and numerous melodies exist to sing it. Not so for Miriam's song, which follows directly the Song of the Sea. For centuries, writes Molly Tolsky, Jews knew of Miriam's song, but had to take the Bible's word for that it was a nice celebratory tune. People really didn't know how to sing it other than the Torah trup. It took until the late 20th century for one woman to actualize the song with lyrics and melody. And my God, writes Molly, was it worth the wait? Debbie was a staunch feminist. Today, many of us take egalitarianism for granted in our society and in Judaism, but it wasn't that long ago when things were different. Just yesterday on the L'chaim Zoom, Mark Lapidus shared that his family joined Bet Tzedek when their now adult daughter wanted to become bat mitzvah. She was Rav Baruch's first bat mitzvah here at Bet Tzedek. Debbie was the first female composer to contribute significantly to popular Jewish liturgy. Her songs themselves often shed light on women's voices and stories that weren't given the spotlight in traditional text. Miriam's song is one example. For the Torah, for example, calls Miriam a Neviah, a prophetess, but the commentaries are at a loss as to when did she actually prophesize. Riffing on the subsequent words, Achot Aharon, the sister of Aaron, some commentaries suggest that Miriam had the power of prophecy before Moses was born. When she was simply the sister of Aaron, the sight of prophecy was hers. Others, of course, say that Aaron is mentioned here out of concern for his feelings, that he is not mentioned at all in this episode of Shirat Hayam. And so you see the tension, even within the ancient tradition, of Miriam being a prophet, and then also some kind of poo-pooing that, saying it was really Aaron who's there. Debbie never focused on these matters, nor the symbolism of her being a queer member of the Jewish community. Instead, she focused solely on Jews, music, God, and spirituality. And that comes through clearly in Miriam's song. When two friends of her decided to mark their 60th birthdays with a new ritual called Simchat Chochmah, a celebration of wisdom, Debbie wrote music to accompany them. Her song, Miriam's Song, expresses the ideas of Miriam crafting her own delight, having faith in God and her ability to reach the promised land, and the exuberance of that faith leading her to pick up the timbrel in her hand and sing and dance. One can easily see the connection to women reaching the age of wisdom and celebrating their accomplishments, faith, and having reached the promised land of wisdom. That Debbie's yahrzeit is Shabbat Shirah is perhaps God's way of ensuring we remember her legacy on Jewish spirituality, on Jewish prayer, and on Jewish music. On this Shabbat, we focus on song of the sea and of the heart. So let us sing, and if you feel the urge, let us dance too, as we sing Debbie Friedman's Miriam's Song.